Today, I want to give you my review for Apartment 7A. This is, of course, the prequel story to the horror classic Rosemary's Baby. How does this one compare? Does it have a unique story to tell? Let's get into it. Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. My name is Jake. Thank you so much for joining me today. Apartment 7A tells the story of Terry Giannoffrio, who is a character we briefly meet in Rosemary's Baby. And she is played by Julia Garner, and we learn that she is a dancer. And she has dreams and aspirations for one day seeing her name up on the big stage and seeing her name in lights. And she suffers an unfortunate accident right in the beginning of the film where she breaks her ankle and it never fully heals. And then through ill-fated chance, she meets Minnie and Roman Castevet, and they offer her free room and board at the Bramford Apartments. And I'm sure you probably already know something more sinister is going on underneath the surface. Let's start off with the positives. The best part of this film is the lead performance by Julia Garner. She does a really solid job. She is a character who you very early on kind of can sympathize with and root for. She's somebody who's fallen on hard times. You feel bad for her, but she's a fighter. She won't quit. She won't give up. She wants to see her dreams realized. And so she's got that fight in her that you can admire and appreciate. And there's kind of, a bit of an emotional roller coaster that this character goes on in the film. And I think Garner does a really good job expressing all that, going through all the kind of crazy dramatic moments and everything. It's just a very believable performance, and I think she just really sells it and is the best part about this film. Another performance that really stood out to me was Diane Weist. I think she does a really solid job capturing the personality and the cadence of Minnie Castevet, of course, played by Ruth Gordon in Rosemary's Baby. And so she's kind of almost doing like an impersonation of a character kind of thing. But I thought she did a good job. She just really captures that role, got the kind of the voice accent down, the mannerisms, just kind of that always around, irritating, a little bit annoying, almost like too nice of a neighbor kind of thing. But yeah, I thought she did a really solid job with the character. So those two performances for me are definitely the film's highlight. Other than that, man, unfortunately, there is not much more I can say good about Apartment 7A. And this is a film that, once again, like so many other prequels that have gone before it, suffers from the typical kind of prequel syndrome where you know where the story's going. You know how it's going to end. If you've seen Rosemary's Baby, which I would certainly imagine just about everybody watching this has probably already seen, you already know the fate of this character. And so immediately it's like, well, I already know the ending. I know where this is headed. And so again, it's that prequel syndrome where it's like you just cut off the mystery and the excitement of where's this going to go? How's this going to end? What's going to happen? And so immediately you don't get any of that. And Apartment 7A is more of a remake than a prequel. This hits pretty much the exact same beats as Rosemary's Baby. And so again, not only does it suffer the kind of prequel issues where you know where it's headed, but it also suffers the remake issues because it's like, well, I already know like every single beat and every single reveal and pretty much everything that's going to happen in this movie before it even does. And so to me, this is the epitome of a film that doesn't need to exist. It doesn't do anything different. It doesn't tell a different story. Yeah, there are some minor details and little variances and things like that. Of course, the character is different. Not everything is exactly the same, but all the big plot reveals and the big plot points and the story direction, it's basically the same thing. And so it's hard for me to say that this film even warrants its own existence. Now, I could give it maybe a little bit of credit if it executes it in an effective way, if it does the same story, at least in an exciting or effective way, but it doesn't, as this is one of the more dull and underwhelming films I have seen all of this year. And as I said, this feels more like a remake, but it is clearly a more modernized remake where the original film is very comfortable being patient and taking its time and doing this slow burn, gradual build until you get kind of the big reveal in the end. Whereas this is a film that's a little more hurried and it just feels more modernized. The original film is comfortable being very grounded, very realistic, whereas this is a film that I feel like it's almost afraid that its audience is going to get too bored. And so it has to have these few moments here and there where it kind of throws stuff at the screen. It throws kind of the jump scare stuff at you. There's a few nightmare sequences that Terry has, and they just feel like they exist because it's like, oh, we don't trust our story enough. Let's just kind of throw some stuff at you. Let's give you a little stylized, some imagery, some visuals, some sounds. And so there's a few scenes like that just feel like they exist just for kind of this brief little jump scare shock value, because I feel like they don't trust their story enough to unfold gradually and build that mystery and suspense the way that Rosemary's Baby did. And so it just feels like a very modernized, Hollywoodized version of this story. And another underwhelming aspect is how tame this movie is. This is an R-rated movie that does not feel like an R-rated movie. This feels like a PG-13 horror film, as the horror here is, again, just very tame and very mild. Now, I don't need every R-rated horror film to be blood and guts. I'm not really expecting that with this type of story, but it doesn't feel like there's hardly any horror at all. Everything is just so mild and cut down. Whereas the original film, Rosemary's Baby, yeah, there's hardly any sort of blood and guts stuff, but the sense of paranoia that film carries is overwhelming. And so the horror aspect that you get in that original film is just this extreme paranoia with great mystery, really good kind of ominous, mysterious atmosphere. This film doesn't have any of that. There's no mystery here. There's no paranoia here. Again, because you already know where the story's going to go. And so all of that is just gone. There's no good atmosphere. There's no kind of creepy, unsettling, ominous atmosphere whatsoever. There's a couple moments where the film tries to do some, I guess you could call it body horror type thing, but it's all shown so quickly and the scene ends so fast that you're like, that's it. Again, it just all feels so underwhelming. And so the horror here was very unsatisfying and was just very, very much lacking. And so to me, what you're left with is a film that, again, has some good performances, but outside of that, it doesn't really justify its own existence. It doesn't expand on this world. It doesn't even tell a different story. It basically tells the same exact story, and it does it in a much, much less effective way. This was a big disappointment for me. I had some hopes, considering I was a really big fan of the director, Natalie Erika James's first film. Yeah, I was hoping for something better. And I don't know if she is fully to blame, and I'm going to kind of speculate here, but I feel like we see this sort of pattern happen in horror movies where you get this new horror director and they release a film or two that is their own thing, and you see this potential and this creativity and this talent. And then the studios notice that, and so they grab them and are like, hey, do you want to make the 6th installment of this pre-existing franchise? And of course, as a young up-and-comer, you're like, man, that sounds exciting. That sounds great. And I'm sure they probably get a pretty good paycheck with that. But then they get all this studio interference and you get just this tame, dumbed-down, watered-down type of movie where the talent that these filmmakers have is, it's just limited. And it's like put in this studio box kind of thing. I feel like that's another example of this happening right here with Apartment 7A. So yeah, this was a bummer. As far as a grade, I'm going to give it a 4, but I feel like, honestly, I could probably give this like a 3 or 3.5. So yeah, it it's just a bummer. I don't know really hardly outside of those couple performances. I don't know what anybody is going to see in this that they're going to think is effective or memorable or worthwhile whatsoever, especially when you have the great classic film to compare it to. It just totally pales in comparison in every possible way. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Hit me up down below like always. Let me know your thoughts. I'm always interested in hearing from you guys. Thank you once again for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.